Hi, everyone. I want to talk about this Capricorn full moon coming up on July 10th at 4:38 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is going to be an interesting full moon because I call it my wake up, shake up full moon because there's some interesting things going on, especially with Uranus entering Gemini 2 or 3 days just before this full moon. But I'll explain what I mean by sharing the chart. So here's the full moon chart. As we can see, this is at 18 degrees of Capricorn. Cancer Capricorn axis is the work life balance, family and work balance. And 18 degrees is a Virgo degree, which I find interesting because this full moon is making a sextile and a trine to Mars in Virgo, and the South Node is showing us that what we take action on needs to be efficient, it needs to be effective, needs to be practical, and maybe be of service in some way. It could even be something regarding our health, releasing our addictions and poor habits so that we can become more healthy. And the reason I say release is because the South Node is there. Even if it's not our health, could be just cutting or severing or releasing something. Mars likes to cut and sever. The South Node also says the same story, but this is supportive. It's not too harsh because it's a trine sextile. So it's a gentle and supportive way of releasing. The South Node is where we release and where we let go. And conjuncting Mars, taking action, showing us what we need to sever, what we need to release, what we need to cut. And by releasing or cutting the excess of anything that's not needed, then we become more efficient in whatever action we're ready to take. So this is a very supportive full moon with Mars complementing this energy, working very directly with the Virgo energy. Now, also, we need to consider the ruler of the full moon, which is going to be Saturn, because Saturn rules Capricorn. And as we can see, Saturn, I'll point to it, Saturn is right here conjunct Neptune. And this is extremely important because Saturn is at the apex of a mini grand trine again. So this is a very supportive full moon. In other words, Saturn allows us to bring into form whatever we're ready to take action on. Capricorn is very good at crystallizing the things that we put our mind to. And now we're meant to cut the excess and materialize whatever it is that we've been focusing on. And Saturn is with Neptune. They don't really work well together because Neptune is a complete opposite of Saturn. And interestingly, the North Node is in Pisces, and the ruler of Pisces is Neptune, and Neptune is with Saturn. Whatever we may have felt we are working towards or want to materialize or believe is our dream, Saturn wants to help us to get it. Now, Saturn and Neptune are very different energies because Saturn wants things to be logical, to be linear, to be practical, but also to have rules and boundaries around it and to work hard for it. Where Neptune is a complete opposite. Neptune wants to dissolve. It does not want boundaries or structures. Just kind of wants to flow. And Saturn does not go with the flow. Neptune just wants to flow and not have boundaries, not have any rules, and just sort of fantasize and float away and just dream. And Saturn is putting some boundaries around Neptune, reining it in so that Neptune can actually bring into reality some type of dream that we may have had. And the North Node is also supporting that because the North Node wants to give us something. And if Neptune has a dream, Saturn is ready to help. Now, this new moon is speaking clearly about that because the new moon is in Capricorn. So it's saying whatever ideas you've been ruminating on and going back and forth on and may have felt confused about, because when Neptune was direct, it does make things foggy and confusing. But now that Neptune has gone retrograde a few days ago, now we can get a little bit more clarity. Some of the clouds fade out or the fogginess fades out and we start to see through it. And with Saturn still direct for a few more days, we have a window of time where we can really see through the clouds and get a much clearer idea of what it is that we're ready to crystallize, bring into our material world that we may have felt some confusion about, but even though it was an idea, it felt cloudy and unclear, and now we're ready to have clarity around it. They're in Aries. So Mars is helping us to sever all the unwanted, unnecessary, ineffective ideas we may have had to materialize this into something more concrete after we've cut away what's not working. Saturn wants rules and time and order. So them working together is not exactly the easiest thing. And they're in the sign of Aries, which interestingly enough, the sign that Saturn is in, showing that it's ready to take action, sever, release, cut what's needed to shape what we want into reality. And the South Node is supporting that. Now, the North Node usually wants to bring us something. It's what it's fated to come to us in some way. And it usually wants to bring us something or give us something. Now, Neptune, it has gone read 5 days before. A lot of times the confusion and fogginess that we may have had around an idea becomes more clear because now that it's retrograde, it's less intense and clears some of the fog out of the way so we can see what we may have been confused about. Saturn is still direct, and although it's going to go retrograde in a few days, right now it's direct and it's a window of time where we can start to really understand what it is that we want to bring into form. If we can, this is a fantastic way to take action in a very efficient and effective way to materialize what it is that we want. So Neptune can be our dreams, and Saturn can be what we want to materialize that from our dreams. Neptune can be our desires for something more spiritual, and Saturn brings more clarity and precision around what it is that we really believe. So with this combination in Aries, it also shows us at the very beginning of Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, and in the first 2 degrees of Aries, is showing us that we're ready for something new. When this seed sprouts, once these planets go direct, have a clear vision of what it is that we're taking action on. Hope that makes sense to some of you. Now, Saturn is working also very well with Uranus and Pluto, but particularly Uranus. And the reason I'm saying this is because Uranus was at 29 degrees forever, and it just moved into Gemini. Now that Uranus is in Gemini, this is absolutely a clear and precise sextile. And now they're actually complementary energies because we're dealing with fire and air. Fire and air works very well together. So fire is the desire to take action, and air is the ideas that we have that we're ready to take action on. So now things can flow, and Uranus is ready for that breakthrough. It is ready to wake us up and shake us up in some way. And although Uranus can be disruptive, I see this as quite positive or more supportive because of this mini grand trine. And not to mention that this is a full moon opportunity for our ideas to manifest. And what is Gemini? Ideas. All the innovative ideas that we may have had, and Neptune has been allowing us to dream them up for a while, and we're like, thinking about them. And Saturn is saying, okay, you need to take action, but yeah, we feel confused still. What am I supposed to do? Now Uranus is saying, I'm going to give you clarity. And not only, even if I don't give you clarity, you're going to feel inspired, desires, even if it feels disruptive, to act on it. So the impulse to act. And I don't even see this impulse as being too brash as it would normally be, because Mars, the planet that we take action from, is in Virgo with the South Node. So it does tame down that reactive impulsiveness. So I believe Mars will be more controlled and disciplined about in the action that it's going to take instead of impulsive, reactive. But Uranus is quite powerful. And Saturn, like I said, crystallizes these ideas. And now, this window of time, we can have a little bit more clarity on what those ideas might be. Saturn has been working with Pluto, allowing us to transform our ideas in some way. help us to find transformative ways to manifest what it is that we want. Of course, we have to be clear about what we want, and this is what this window of time is about. Now, this is a very supportive mini grand trine that will be here for a number of years. Between the end of this year and early next year, I believe it's November, that Uranus goes back into Taurus, and Neptune and Saturn are also going to retrograde into Pisces. So there's some things to be finished that we're going to complete until at the end of this year all the way to early next year. I believe it's around April or so that this formation comes back in its full strength. However, it's still there and it's opening the doors for opportunities that we can begin to take advantage of if we are clear about what our ideas are. Now, Saturn is still squaring Jupiter. It's a wider orb right now, so it's not as intense. When they were more exact early June, that's Saturn squaring Jupiter and then eventually Neptune. There could have been some delays or maybe some restrictions around things that we wanted to move forward on. And there was either some difficulties in overcoming it or maybe just some delays because Saturn is delays. However, Jupiter is the stronger planet because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So eventually we will figure it out and be able to take action on whatever our dreams might be. And Jupiter is definitely there to help. And soon enough, it's actually still invisible right now because it's still under the beams of the sun. And I believe it's around the 15th or 17th, depending on where you live, that Jupiter will become visible and also be able to give us more of his blessings. The other thing to look at is this mystical rectangle. So we're dealing with a mystical rectangle and a mini grand trine, which is very supportive for this time. And although Uranus moving into Gemini is going to cause some shakeups, and that's why I entitled this video Wake Up and Shake Up, is because Uranus is the awakener. And even though it's hopefully gentle for most of us, of course, this depends on your natal chart. This is a general reading of just the sky, not considering your own personal natal charts. But Uranus moving into Gemini needs to make some noise for what it wants to bring. And also because it's leaving another sign, which was Taurus, it's also going to leave its mark there. So we will be seeing at least the early stages of what Uranus wants to shake up in all of our lives. We all have Gemini somewhere in our charts. And especially if you have a planet, sun, moon, or ascendant anywhere from 0 to maybe 3 degrees, you're going to get a good idea of what Uranus wants to bring to us between now and say November until it retrogrades back into Taurus. And also it will show you what it's willing to give you or release now that it's moving from Taurus. So all that will happen and unfold over the next year when Uranus moves into Gemini and it's officially there and we really get a clear understanding of what it is bringing to us. I wanted to point that out because that's such an important transit that's happening in the sky, probably the most important right now. Mystical rectangles are also just as supportive as the mini grand trine because even though there is some oppositions between the sun and the moon, which is a full moon, because the full moon brings to light whatever it puts a spotlight on it. It's also a turning point in something that we might be doing. And like I said, this, I believe, is more about our home traditions and our work-life balance, like how much work responsibility, how many rules we have. Are we willing to break those rules? Uranus in Gemini, especially speaking with Saturn, the ruler of the full moon. It's really speaking about those energies, depending on what house it falls in your personal natal chart. Now, this rectangle also is in contact with the nodes, and the nodes are fated. We all know that. Whatever fated directions we're meant to take, this is supportive of that. And North Node is in Pisces. The ruler is Neptune. And so again, this is about our dreams, And Saturn is here to help us to work on that. And it's at the early degrees or the beginning of the zodiac as 1 degree. So new beginnings in a direction that we're ready to take. And South Node with Mars is showing that we're ready to take action, to release, let go, and surrender to what is ready to leave at this point in order to make way for our dreams to come true. And we're meant to do this in a way that allows us to find emotional balance between what we're letting go and also what we're ready to crystallize and bring to ourselves. So this is really a pretty nice full moon, if you ask me. I think it's very supportive. It is working with the nodes, and the fact that it's working with the nodes means that it's quite fated for a lot of us, and especially if you have anything in Capricorn or Cancer or Aries, the cardinal signs between, let's say, 15 and 22 degrees. You may feel this more in your lives, and the house that it falls in will tell you more about what this is about. But everyone has a natal chart with these placements somewhere. So you will feel some kind of effect, if not from this full moon directly, then also if you have planets in Aquarius, Aries, and Gemini, you will also feel this because of this mini grand trine making its exact connection right at this moment as this full moon is happening. So it'll be fascinating to see how this unfolds over the next several weeks. So that's what I have to share on this video. Thank you for joining me. And if you'd like to have a natal chart reading with me, contact me at starwellastro@gmail.com. Thank you for joining me.